Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that kind of stuff. And there is a lot of stuff to talk about here today. More developments on the James Gunn situation. We got a Sonic the Hedgehog dude is now involved. We got a brand new movie with Captain Marvel's Brie Larson. Lots of stuff. But before we get into any of that, let's do a little bit of house cleaning around here. Number one, remember yesterday's question of the day. We like to address the question of the day from the day before right off the top here. Yesterday's question of the day was simply this. In light of the news that studios are lining up, including Warner Brothers, specifically Warner Brothers, we're lining up to offer James Gunn new deals once he settles his stuff with Disney. The question became, do you think we're going to see James Gunn direct a DC movie? And you guys responded, and it was pretty overwhelming. The vast majority of you guys said yes. James Gunn will direct a DC movie. 82.61% of you guys said yes, he will direct a DC movie. 17.39% of you said no, he won't. So overwhelmingly, you guys have said he's going to direct a DC movie, but hold on to your horses. There's other developments here that we're going to talk about that may throw a wrench in those plans. We'll get to those in just a second. Now, also here, right off the top, should talk about this. On yesterday's John Campea show, we talked a little bit about the brand new rules that have come down from the Academy. New changes the Academy is going to be making to the Oscars. Now, two of the changes I applaud. Two of the changes I thought were very good. Change number one, committing to making the show no longer than 3 hours. That's a good change. That's a good change. And they said they would actually award a couple of categories during commercial breaks and then highlight them later in the show just to keep the show going. I like that move. I do. I think it's a positive mood. It's good for the show. The second change they said they're going to institute starting in 2020 was moving the Oscars 3 weeks up. So instead of being in the last weekend of February, it was actually going to be now in the first weekend of February. I think moving it a little bit earlier in the year is a good move. Again, I applaud those moves. I think those are good moves. However, the one that really caught the headlines was one of the most asinine, idiotic things ever to come out of the Oscars. And that was the idea of instituting a popular film, best popular film category. Of course, undermining everything that genre films are about and undermining everything that the Oscars are about. It's a lose-lose. Well, I wasn't the only. I thought maybe I'd be the only one moaning and complaining about it. But it was industry-wide. The backlash against this proposal has been industry-wide. Everybody from individual actors are getting online. Rob Lowe specifically got on and said, well, today's the day the Oscar dies. But everything from The Guardian to Variety to IndieWire, on and on, the industry-wide, people are speaking out against this ridiculous notion of most popular film. Now, for those of you who didn't watch my show yesterday, my main objections on the idea of a most popular film is this. Number one, it undermines and insults genre films. Because we are now living in an age when genre films, specifically comic book movies, higher form sci-fi, things like that, they are getting better and better and better. And they're actually starting to threaten for some of the major awards. Just this year, Logan got what is kind of claimed by the Academy to be got nominated for the third most important Academy Award. That is screenplay. There is no movie without a screenplay. And Logan was the first comic book movie ever to get nominated for that award. Crazy. So we're seeing this development and this growth, right? For the Academies now to step in and say, oh, we're going to kind of insult you now, and we're going to undermine all that progress you made, and we're going to make this participation award. Oh, look, we're making a nice little category just for you called popular movies. You're not good enough to win real Academy Awards. Pat them on the head. But don't you worry, we're going to give you your own little award. Isn't that great? Like, that's what they've done. What the Academy has done is said they've set up a kiddie table for these genre films. No, don't take the genre films seriously. Don't take comic book films seriously. Don't let them be in the running legitimately with the real best movies of the year. No, they can't handle that. Let's create a kiddie table. Yay! And what it does is it undermines all the incredible progress we've seen with genre films, particularly comic book movies. And it's a spit in the face to comic book movies. It also undermines the basic integrity of what the Oscars are. The Oscars are supposed to be about, because all your criticism and all the criticism I may have about whatever about the Oscars, still the underlying foundation is whether we agree with the decisions or not. The idea of the Oscars has always been reward and recognize excellence, the best. Now, we can agree or disagree on what is the best year, that's fine. But as long as you get that philosophical underpinning that this is about recognizing the best, now you're like, well, we won't really recognize the best, so let's take the ones that aren't nearly the best and give them their own category. It's ridiculous, and it undermines the very philosophical foundation of what the Oscars are, and it sets back the progress that comic book movies and genre movies have made by decades. And the entire industry is recognizing this. This is ridiculous. Now, the other thing that came out about this, not only is we're getting a lot of backlash from the industry, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, IndieWire, on and on and on. Not only are we getting massive backlash, but it's really come to light. New reports are coming out of where these changes really came from. Remember, I like two of the changes. Shorten the show. That doesn't affect the integrity of the Oscar. Move the date of the Oscars up. That doesn't affect the integrity of the Oscar. Creating a popular movie category, that affects the integrity of the Oscars. But at any rate, where did these really come from? More and more reports are coming out now that the real cause for these changes, and two of them are good, but it wasn't the Academy itself. It's ABC, the network that broadcasts the Oscars. The reports that I'm reading right now, and I cannot confirm this because I don't know anybody firsthand connected to the situation. I'm simply relaying the reports that I'm reading, all right? I have not spoken to anybody directly. I cannot confirm this independently, all right? Let's be very clear about that. That being said, the reports that we're reading now are saying the pressure for this has been coming from ABC, the television network that broadcasts the Oscars right now. It says they're the ones who are putting it on the Academy to shorten the show, but I'm all for that. To move the show up, I'm all for that. But to create fake participation award categories just so we can say, oh, look, guys, Infinity War's nominated. For what? Best Picture? No. Best Director? No. Well, what then? Best Popular Film. Isn't that good? Fuck you. Anyway, so it's ABC that's doing that just so they can say, look, guys, some of your favorite movies are nominated, even though they're nominated for pretend fake awards. The moment the Academy allows the television network that broadcasts the show to start dictating the integrity of the show, that is BS. And don't forget, who's behind ABC? Disney. One of the movie studios should not have this type of leverage to force or coerce the Academy and their integrity of how they maintain the show. Look, there are practical things you can do to make the show better. I agree. Shorten it up. Move some of the categories to commercial breaks. I'm fine with that. Move up the date. I'm fine with that. All that improves the show without touching the integrity of what the Oscars are. But once Disney sticks their nose in and starts trying to influence the integrity of the Oscars. John, it's not Disney, it's ABC. Well, Disney owns ABC, so whatever, I'll say ABC. Once ABC starts sticking their nose in and starts to influence decision-making that affects the integrity of the award and affects the integrity of the genre films that are getting better and better and better, that cannot be allowed. You can't allow this. It's ridiculous. And to all of my viewers, well-meaning viewers who have written to me, but John, I kind of like the idea of honoring the films that I go to see because, people write to me. I don't go to see a lot of the Oscar films. I'm not down with the dramas. I like my comic book movies. I like my sci-fi movies. It's kind of cool to see those honored at the Academy Awards. I appreciate that. The problem is it's not honoring them. It's laughing at them. It's like You're the unpopular kid who got invited to the party, not because they wanted to invite you, but because they wanted you there to laugh at them. That's what this is. They're creating a booby prize. They're creating a participation award. They're creating a kiddie table. This is not honoring comic book films. This is not honoring sci-fi films. This is not honoring genre films. It's spitting on them and creating a kiddie table. And saying, don't you feel special? You get to sit at the special table, the kiddie table. Like, it's ridiculous. And the notion that the Academy is allowing a television network owned by one of the major movie studios to influence decisions that affect the integrity of the show is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Again, I want to emphasize the positive. I applaud the other choices. I applaud the other decisions. Those are good decisions. You can't stop there, but that's a good start. Those are some good decisions. The Academy's been making a lot of good decisions over the past 2 or 3 years. They've been really making some positive changes, doing some positive things, making some positive, course corrections. I applaud it. But this one thing can't be overlooked. This is major. The whole industry recognizes that it's major. The actors are recognizing that it's ridiculous. Media outlets are recognizing that it's ridiculous. We, the movie fans, are recognizing it's ridiculous. They've got to kill this. They got to kill it. And I really, really hope they do. Anyway, guys, let's move on now to our main topics of the day. How do we pick out our main topics of the day? Well, I'm glad you asked. You guys actually pick out the main topics of the day. How do you submit a topic or a question to be on the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less, or else it's just too long I couldn't even fit it on the screen. All right. Let's move on now with the first topic. And the first official topic today comes to us from Davin Redmont Mount, who writes, growing up, I played Sonic games relentlessly. Still wasn't sure how I felt about a Sonic movie, but with James Marsden and Jim Carrey on, Deadpool's Tim Miller producing, and now Ben Schwartz doing the voice of Sonic, I'm more than a little interested. I know you liked Parks and Rec, but I like Ben even more in House of Lies. How do you think this is shaping up? Right, so for those of you who did not hear the news, House of Lies and Parks of Rec co-star Ben Schwartz is also a stand-up comedian. I love this guy. John Ralphio! I love this guy. He's been brought on now to do the voice of Sonic, and apparently they've already started shooting the movie. And I'm going to say this, Davin, I am very much in the same boat as you. I've had no interest in this movie. It sounds a little ridiculous. It's going to be a mix between CGI and live action, so that's cool. But once Tim Miller's producing, interesting. You get James Marsden on. I love James Marsden. So interesting. And now you bring a guy like Ben Schwartz and you get Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. Very interesting. And now you're bringing in a voice like Ben Schwartz. I like it. I got to say, I like it a lot. I have been one that kind of rolled my eyes a little bit and hummed and hawed about the notion of them doing a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, granted. But they've been making some pretty good moves. None of these moves ensure that the movie's going to be good. And just because Ben Schwartz is doing the voice of Sonic, that doesn't mean the dialogue that the screenplay has is any better. But maybe it is. Maybe it's good. Look, all we have right now in front of us is the information we have. And the information we have, despite my skepticism, is actually not bad information. James Marsden, Jim Carrey, Tim Miller, Ben Schwartz. Hey, that's all good stuff. Will that translate into a good movie? We'll have to wait and see. I am like you. I loved him in Parks and Rec. I did. But I think I liked his work even a little bit more. And he had a more substantial role in Don Cheadle's House of Lies. That was a fun show. I enjoyed that show. I enjoyed it a great deal. And I thought he was one of the big reasons why I liked it so much. Anyway, let's move on to topic number 2. And the second topic today comes to us from Robert Beltran, who writes, I read that Hollywood Reporter article about James Gunn. So, a bunch of studios are lining up to offer Gunn a job, including Warner Brothers. But in that story, they also mentioned that Disney may still, may still use Gunn's script for Guardians 3. And even that, there is still hope through the talks that Gunn could return in some fashion. Isn't it hypocritical for Disney to use Gunn's script? Do you think there's actually any chance he could come back? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. So yeah, in that whole story yesterday about the fact that studios right now are kind of lining up, the Hollywood Reporter claims they talked to dozens of studio executives and big producers, all saying they're just chomping at the bit to sign James Gunn and to get James Gunn working on one of their projects, including Warner Brothers. Hence, that was the basis of the question of the day yesterday about will James Gunn direct a DC film. Now, in that article is also one single line that kind of gets overlooked. And that single line in the article was basically, well, you know, let's read that entire section here to see what it is we're talking about. This is from the Hollywood. Remember, this isn't some blog or some, and I love blogs. I have a history in blogs. So I'm saying this isn't a blog. This isn't some gossip site. This is the Hollywood Reporter. And this is an excerpt from where they wrote. Some experienced talent reps estimate that due to the unique situation, Gunn could receive a payout of $7 to $10 million, if not potentially higher. And more importantly, he would be free to take on other projects immediately. Also affecting the negotiations is that, here's the key thing here, Disney plans on using Gunn's script for the third Guardians pick, according to sources. Excuse me, what? Disney plans on using Gunn's script for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, in the email, the question is it hypocritical of Disney to use a script? Well, why would you even suggest that it's hypocritical? The reason I believe he's suggesting it might be hypocritical is let's go back and look at Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn's actual quote and statement about James Gunn when he was announcing he was firing him. Alan Horn said the following: James Gunn's tweets are indefensible and inconsistent with our studio's values, and we have severed our business relationship with him. We have severed. It was very harsh. It was very unfair. But he said, we have severed our business relationship with him. The reason I think some people are asking when the idea that maybe they could be using James Gunn's script, isn't that a little hypocritical, is because it is a little hypocritical. First of all, Alan Horn, you come out and lie to everybody and pretend like, oh, Disney had no idea about those tweets. Lies. The only reason I'm pissed off about this whole thing is because he lied. He straight up lied and tried to pull a con on the fans to make themselves look good and to try to save face. And it's BS. You shouldn't treat your audience and your fans and your customers like that. And Alan Horn should be freaking ashamed of himself. He's a brilliant man. I think he's a great studio executive. I'm a fan of Alan Horn. I am. But just because I'm a fan does not mean I'm not going to call you on your bullshit when you serve up a big heap and plate of bullshit and you just served up an extra side with fries. All right? And I'm going to call you on it because you did. Anyway. For Alan Horn to come out and say, we're severing all business relationships with him. Really? What do you call using his script then? Ain't that a business relationship? Like, if you're really going to come out here and say, we're severing all business relationships, well, then don't use the script. Don't use the script. Pay the man his $7 to $10 million and separate. Let him be on his way. But here's the thing. The Hollywood Reporter article goes on to say this. Starting midway down here, Disney, Marvel, and reps for Gunn declined to comment. There may be an unexpected twist to the story. Two sources say there is a hope through the talks. Remember, by talks, he means right now Gunn and Disney are in negotiations right now, working out his departure, right? And Disney's going to have to cut him a big check to sit at home and do nothing. But anyway, they are still in negotiations working out that. But the Hollywood Reporter goes on to say this, starting at the beginning of that last paragraph again, there may be an unexpected twist to the story. Two sources say there is a hope through the talks that Gunn could return in some fashion, even if it's to develop and direct another Marvel movie. The quote says, an end-all verdict hasn't been issued. Really? An end-all verdict hasn't been issued? I don't know. Alan Horn's statement seems like a pretty end-all verdict, but anyway, let's keep going on and reading the quote here. An end-all verdict hasn't been issued, and conversations with Marvel are still ongoing, says one source familiar with the proceedings. Okay, So now we're saying that, wait a minute. Maybe Disney's realizing they goofed. And now they're trying to backtrack. And they're trying to work out Gunn still staying in the family. I don't know if that's a response to the overwhelming support James Gunn has got over this. And again, support for James Gunn does not mean support for his disgusting, idiotic, moronic, idiot moron mouth tweets that he put out 8-9 years ago. It's not, nobody supports those tweets. As Alan Horn said, they were indefensible. They were idiotic and they were stupid. But James Gunn is getting a lot of support because the first person to recognize they were idiotic and stupid was that guy, James Gunn. He recognized they were stupid. He says, shit, like I'm trying to be funny. I'm thinking, because remember, he worked for Troma Films. The whole business, at the time he was working for Troma, they're in the business of shock. That's all they do is shock. So he was tweeting like that. And they were stupid and they were idiotic and they were offensive and they're just dumb. Just dumb. And James Gunn realized it without anybody telling him that. James Gunn realized and said, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy. What I'm writing isn't funny. What I'm writing doesn't make sense. What I'm writing is just offensive. So I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to change and I'm going to stop. And he did years ago. That's why people support James Gunn now, because he didn't just come out and say, sorry. He actually took the step to stop. He changed his behavior. And that's why everybody is supporting James Gunn. And there's some people who try to twist this whole thing by saying, oh, by supporting James Gunn, you're saying you support his tweets. No. We're all on the same team. The tweets were dumb. The tweets were idiotic. The tweets were offensive. And he recognized it. Before you recognized it, before I recognized it, he recognized it and said, no more. I'm not going to do that anymore. And he stopped. That's what we should ask people to do in our society, at any rate. So the idea that they may be looking for a way for him to come back in and all that kind of stuff is interesting. Again, I am harkened back to this one thing, though, that still just sticks in my craw. And I know I've been talking about this for a week or more, but this one thing still just sticks in my craw. It's the way Alan Horn addressed this. Because, look, I put up a tweet about this last night, but I decided to pull it down. But I will mention what it was. I was told by somebody inside Disney, not that Gunn was coming back. That's different from what I've heard. I got told that there is a general sense of regret around Disney, how they handled the Gunn situation. And there is, I don't want to paraphrase too much. What I was told was that there was very little consultation before Alan Horn just came out and declared, we're getting rid of him. And he said there wasn't enough consideration being given to the situation before they reacted and made public statements. And by making public statements without proper consideration and without proper consultation, Disney's painted themselves into a corner. Now, I understand the report from Hollywood Reporter says they're still trying to work out a way to maybe bring him back, but that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that Disney is pretty much, they've painted themselves in the corner. By Alan Horn coming out and making that stupid statement, they've painted themselves in the corner. Here's what, you know what? There's more I want to say about this, but we've talked about this issue long enough here today, so we're going to move on. Bottom line, here's your bullet points. Gunn's still not working at Marvel. It looks like Marvel still wants to use Gunn's script. Gunn is going to get paid $70 million to not work. Wouldn't we all love to get fired that way? But apparently there are still back channel efforts being made to keep Gunn in the Marvel family. We'll have to just wait and see how all this turns out. All right, let's move on to the third topic. And the third topic today comes to us from Terry Magana, who writes, greetings, John. Love the show and watch almost every day from St. Louis. Well, thank you so much, Terry. Appreciate that. Go Blues. I know you miss the days of true standalone movies. Oh, dude. Yep, I do miss those days very much. So I wondered if you saw that James Wan confirmed that his Aquaman movie is a true standalone and confirmed that there would be no Justice League members making appearances. Do you think that's the right decision for this movie? Thanks. All right, so for those of you who did not hear about this, there was a lot of speculation going around, understandably so, that in the upcoming Aquaman movie, we'd get a Wonder Woman cameo, or a Cyborg cameo, or a Flash cameo, maybe even a Batman cameo, maybe a Superman cameo, maybe a James Gordon cameo, whatever the case may be. A lot of speculation about that. James Gunn was asked about that specifically. And what James Gunn said in his interview, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, he said, look, I understand that Aquaman is part of a larger universe, but it's important to me, said James Gunn, to focus on this story and on this guy. And essentially he goes on to basically explain there's not going to be any Justice League. There's not going to be any cameos by other superheroes other than maybe superheroes that are directly connected to Aquaman in his world. But he said very specifically, I understand this is part of a bigger universe, but I made it clear to Warner Brothers when I came on, I wanted to focus on this story. Now, that doesn't really make Aquaman a true standalone film because it is still part of a bigger cinematic universe, right? But it's as close to being a true standalone film as you can get. And I'll tell you what, me personally, I love the idea that Juan is going to keep all the other characters out. If you want the other characters, make another Justice League movie. I'm going to see this movie to see an Aquaman movie. And I applaud what he's doing. I applaud the stand he's taking. I applaud his laser-like focus on this story and not wanting to compromise that story by just gratuitously throwing in other characters. I think that speaks volume about, number one, Warner Brothers' new direction. Because I'll tell you what, under a previous administration, they may have forced James Wan to put in cameos. Under the new leadership there, they didn't do it. I think it speaks volumes about James Wan and his vision. And I think it speaks volumes about the commitment to this story that both James and Warner Brothers has been showing. Now, none of that guarantees a good movie, clearly. Aquaman could be just complete suck city. Absolutely it might. But I think all this stuff we're seeing is good signs. I'm looking forward to this movie. I've loved the fact that Jason Momoa was cast in this film right from the very beginning. I liked him in Justice League. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in his own standalone film. So, yeah, I think it's a good move, man. I think it's a really good move. All right, let's move on now to topic number 4. And topic number 4 comes to us from Linda Mancini, who writes, Hey, John, I grew up loving Jaws, so I sort of have a pre-existing soft spot for shark movies in my heart. With the Meg opening this week, how do you think it will do against the competition? Do you think it can take the number 1 spot from Mission Impossible? Will Slender Man or Black Klansman pose any danger to it? All right, so yeah, actually tonight, the Meg opens up. Meg opens up tonight. I'm going to go see it tonight. I'm going to put up my review for it. So Meg opens up tonight. Question, can it take that number 1 spot from Mission Impossible? Mission Impossible is going into its 3rd weekend. The Meg, big high-profile film coming out its opening weekend. Mission Impossible just made about $35 million last weekend, so you know it's going to make less this weekend. So your immediate reflex reaction would just say, well, yeah, automatically, the Meg is going to be number 1. Hold on a second. The tracking numbers for the Meg are not all that strong. Word of mouth isn't that bad about the movie, but the tracking numbers have not been strong. Right now, the latest numbers I saw from just about a day ago is that the Meg is tracking to open around $20 million. Now, that's not horrible, but keep this in mind. Mission Impossible last weekend made 35. Expect it to make from a 35 to 50% drop. That means Mission Impossible could end up making 20 million or more this weekend. It may make less than that. It totally could, but it could make around 20 plus million. It could still conceivably make 21, 22, 23 million bucks this weekend. If Mission Impossible Fallout does make 20 plus million this weekend, it's not so automatic that the Meg is going to take first place. With the Meg tracking for around 20 million, now that means, give or take a little bit, the Meg could make 23, 25, 26. It could make that, sure. But the point is, it's not as automatic as you might think. With a film going into its 3rd weekend and a new high-profile film opening up that weekend, you just think the high-profile film would take it, not necessarily so. It's going to be close. Either way, it's going to be close. Now, as far as Slender Man or Black Klansman, I don't think so. I don't think either one of those films are going to do much damage at the box office, to be honest with you. This is either going to be Mission Impossible or it's going to be the Meg. My guess right now is that the Meg will eke out the number one spot, but I think by a razor margin. I think the Meg will take the number one spot from Mission Impossible, but by that much. Just by that much. But that leads us into today's question of the day. And the question of the day today is simple, guys. The Meg. Will it be number one at the box office this weekend? Look into the description of this video, and at the very bottom of the description, you'll see a link where you go and cast your vote. And it's simple. It's a yes or no thing. Will the Meg take the number one spot? Either yes, it will be number one, or no, Mission Impossible will hold on to the number one spot. And since I just announced it, let's go over and take a look and see if any of you guys have voted yet. Just takes a second for it to load up. La 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 la. I should really start loading this thing earlier. All right. So we've already got like 160 of you have already voted now. And wow, actually, surprise, surprise, you guys disagree with me. Will wonders never cease? Yeah, you always disagree with me. Okay, so I'm saying I think the Meg will eke out the number one spot, just barely. But that's not what you guys are saying right now. You guys are saying right now, 74.8% of you right now are saying, nope, Mission Impossible is going to hold on to the number one spot. And it might, but if it does, it'll be by that much. And 25.1% of you guys right now are saying, yes, the Meg will take the number one spot. I think it will take the number one spot by that much. You guys are saying it won't. We'll find out next week on Monday which one of us were right. But again, guys, hey, the poll is still open until tomorrow morning. Go in, cast your votes. Again, look in the description of this video, click on the link at the bottom of the description. It'll take you to where you vote. Go cast your vote, and we'll go over your guys' results tomorrow. All right, let's move on now to the final email of the day. And the final email today comes to us from Edmundo Gonzalez, who writes, "Can't wait for Captain Marvel. Speaking of which, I saw that Brie Larson is going to star with Michael B. Jordan in a new film for Warner Brothers called Just Mercy. Captain Marvel and the Human Torch together. Do you know much about this movie? And is it odd that an MCU actor like Larson is going to be in a Warner Brothers movie?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. Let's deal with that last part first. There is a misconception out there that, oh, if you're in a Marvel movie, that means you can only make movies with Marvel and Disney. No. You can go and make movies with any studio that you want. So if Brie Larson signs like a 4-movie deal with Marvel, that just means she's got to appear in 4 Marvel movies. It doesn't mean she can't go and appear in other movies until that contract's fulfilled. No, she can make 1 movie with Marvel, go make a movie with Fox, come back, make another movie with Marvel, go make a movie with Warner Brothers, come back, make another movie, blah, 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 until her contract's fulfilled or until Marvel doesn't want to use her anymore. So no, it's no more odd than, Michael B. Jordan. Well, doesn't he have a contract with Fox since he's Human Torch? No, actors can go back and forth and make... So that's not a problem. That's not an issue. Yes, this movie that her and Michael B. Jordan are going to be starring in sounds amazing. It revolves around this thing called it's a true story called the Equal Justice Initiative. And what it is, it's the memoirs of the guy who founded this foundation. And you guys have probably heard of them before, even if you don't recognize the name. They're the foundation that go around and will take legal cases of people on death row that they believe may be innocent. And I'm just reading it off of the news site right now. But here's what it says on the news site. The movie is based on the New York Times best-selling memoir by Brian Stevenson, the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, which fights on behalf of wrongly condemned death row prisoners trapped in the criminal justice system. The film will follow Stevenson's first case, that of Walter McMillan, a black man who was sentenced to death for a crime he did not commit. And you're loading it with Michael B. Jordan, who is an Oscar-caliber talent, with Brie Larson, who is an Oscar-winning actress, and of course going to be Captain Marvel. Looking forward to seeing her in that. This sounds great to me. You guys know me. I love movies based on true stories, especially based on true crime and things like this. And this sounds fantastic. The Equal Justice Initiative is a great body. The idea that they're saving people's lives who shouldn't be on death, that's great too. I love everything I'm hearing about this so far. It's kind of maybe got some Oscar contender. Maybe it should be for Best Popular Film. A real Oscar. It could be a real Oscar contender and stuff like that. I mean, who knows? The movie might suck, but everything right now sounds pretty good, and I'm looking forward to this. All right, guys. with all that out of the way, we still got some time left here, and you guys have been sending in a bunch of live questions. So let's take a few minutes here, go over and see what you guys have been talking about in the live chat. And we're going to get things started here with Bobby M, who writes, "Hey, John, do you think it's possible one of the offers on James Gunn's table is Cowboy Ninja Viking? If the delay affects Michelle McLaren's availability, he may want to work with Chris Pratt again." No, the delays don't have anything to do with that. I mean, the delays are about the script right now. So, no, I do not think the studio would bump an existing director to go and make an offer. I mean, this is just too overlapping right now. Not to mention, no studios can specifically, the studios are waiting to make offers. No studio can make an offer right now. Disney and Gunn have to finish their negotiations first and get him out of his contract. Then other studios can officially step in and start making pitches. So far, no pitch has been made, including Cowboy Ninja Viking. But honestly, I really don't think the two situations are connected whatsoever. I don't think they delayed one just so they can go after James Gunn. Unless, who knows? I mean, look, let's put on our tinfoil conspiracy hat for a second. Maybe Chris Pratt, who is an avid supporter of James Gunn, maybe Chris Pratt said to the producers, "Hey, James might be available. Let's go get James." Because, Chris Pratt put out that statement with everybody else saying we want him rehired. I suppose that's theoretically possible, but again, it's a tinfoil hat conspiracy. The reality is, no, it's probably not connected at all. It's probably not connected at all. That doesn't mean if circumstances continue to develop that it couldn't turn into something and that we couldn't see James Gunn direct Cowboy Ninja Viking at some point. But right now, the delay has nothing to do with the James Gunn situation, so I don't think there's any reason at this point to believe that. But hey, let's keep our eyes open, and maybe we'll keep our tinfoil hats ready to go. All right, SS Junior Goku Black writes, "Saw the very sad news last night that Margot Kidder's passing was ruled a suicide by drug overdose. Very similar to Ledger. Yeah, I read that as well, and it is sad. I mean, look, Margot Kidder, good Canadian girl. Margot Kidder, it's well documented. She suffered a lot of adversity in her life and personal challenges that she had. And I will, as awful as it is to verbalize it, I will admit that when I read that, it was sad, but I wasn't really surprised either. I mean, when you go right back to the whole circumstances surrounding her death, I think everybody knew that was a possibility. And that does not take away from the sadness of the situation whatsoever. It's absolutely sad. It's awful. Again, we can see how that happened and that is the circumstances. But again, it doesn't take away from how sad it truly is. And it really is. John DeBenedict writes, "Hey, John, do you have a favorite Tony Scott film? Mine is True Lies." Top Gun, baby. Top Gun all day, every day. Do not get me wrong. I am not undermining True Lies or any other Tony Scott film, which are great, but it's Top Gun. I feel the need for speed. Slider, you stink. Oh my God, Top Gun. Considering how much I love the original Top Gun, you'd think I'd be more excited for this sequel that they're making. And don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to the sequel. I am, but I don't feel that sense of excitement for it. You know what I mean? I'm not like bubbling inside to see the new Top Gun. They're saying some pretty cool things. Could be interesting. Maybe it'll be great. Who knows? But I'm just not feeling that excitement for a guy who loves Top Gun as much as I do. But yeah, man, favorite Tony Scott film, and True Romance is great. He's made several other great films. But yeah, for me, it's going to start and end with Top Gun, baby. James Welsh writes, "Jason Statham's biggest film outside of Fast and the Furious is Expendables 3 at just over $300 million. Given its $150 million budget, do you see the Meg bombing?" I think we all saw the Meg tanking the moment we heard they were making this film for that much money. And it has nothing to do with Jason Statham. It is nothing. I mean, like, this was not a movie. This is not a movie that's going to make $500 million. Especially when we're hearing it's tracking for like a $20 million opening. This movie needs to do serious overseas business, like major overseas business, just for any chance to break even. This is I still don't understand how this film needed $150 million. Now, I haven't seen the film yet, so I'm speaking from a position of being in the fog of war a little bit. I don't know. Like, maybe I'll see the movie and I'll go, oh, okay, yeah. I can see the $150 million on screen. Maybe that'll be the case. But, I mean, I think the moment we all heard, I remember talking about this months and months and months ago when we heard the production budget of the Meg was like $150 million. It was like, well, I don't know how this movie's going to break even. I think we all knew that. And again, it doesn't matter if you had Chris Pratt in it. It doesn't matter. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would bump it up a little, sure. But Statham is a recognizable action star. People like him in these types of roles. And apparently he's pretty good in it. But, yeah, I think we all knew a long time ago this film had a high chance of tanking. No pun intended. But this film had a high chance of tanking. And it certainly seems to be the case right now with like a 20 million opening. Let's see how it actually does. And then let's see how it does overseas. Luke Woodward writes, Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, and Chiwetel Ejiofor are all starring in a Bible movie called Mary Magdalene. Have you seen the trailer? Joaquin is playing Jesus, which is interesting to me. Yeah, it's a religious faith-based film. You guys know I mean I'm very open about this. I do not like any kind of preachy film. I don't like any kind of films like that. And to be honest with you, like I also saw some quotes that the whole premise of the movie is a suggestion. This fake suggestion's been around that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had an affair and stuff like that. And it's whatever. It's a popular thing that's completely untrue, but whatever. So, I mean, I don't like religious movies to start. I mean, everybody knows this. I don't like Bible movies. I don't like religious movies to start. Ben-Hur being an exception. But yeah, I don't think this is going to get major push. How they got these actors involved, I'm not really sure, other than maybe the roles look really challenging. But yeah, mark this one up as one I'm not really interested in. DC Patience writes, Fox News headline today. Guardians of the Galaxy sequel will use disgraced director's James Gunn script. Is this clickbait or a real fight? Well, remember, here's the thing, and this is really the root of a lot of the James Gunn stuff, is that, you know, James Gunn is a very vocal critic of President Trump. He's a very vocal critic of President Trump. Therefore, look, I always tell everybody, never take any headlines seriously from either Fox News or MSNBC. Because MSNBC News and Fox News are two sides of a very sick coin. They both of them just carry on with their political agendas no matter what. Now, some people accuse other news networks of doing that, but I dismiss those people. I think most news networks are pretty fair, pretty balanced. But Fox News and MSNBC, I always tell people, never listen to either one of them. They're opposite sides of the same rotten coin. James Gunn is not disgraced. Overwhelmingly, people support him. But because he's against Fox's golden boy, President Trump, they're going to write things like that. And make no mistake, MSNBC would do the opposite. If we're in the exact same situation, but we had like a President Joe Biden right now, and you had a director that was openly, vocally critical of President Joe Biden, MSNBC would write the same thing. So, I don't like to get into politics, but I will point out sometimes politics where both sides drive me crazy. And this is one of those situations. So, yeah, if you were calling me, hey, John, MSNBC headlines, I'd say instantly, just don't even talk to me about it. Fox headlines, I don't even want to hear about it. You know what I mean? Yes, it is clearly clickbait and it's clearly pandering to their audience. And it's just part of the reality that we live in. CJ Adams writes, if Fantastic Four enters the MCU, chances that Kang had removed them from the time stream. Wouldn't this make an easy introduction and explanation with why they're gone? No. That's way too like me. That's way too nerdy. And it's way too inside baseball. That's not something that would fly with an audience. Now, something like Thanos and the concept of the gauntlet and all that kind of stuff, you can also make an argument that's pretty inside baseball, but that's why they took 10 years building up to it. And they slowly brought their audience along with that one storyline and set them up and conditioned the audience to be ready for Infinity War. Something like, again, just let me read what you wrote. Kang has removed the Fantastic Four from the time stream. That would explain their introduction. Why? No. That is not something that would fly with the general movie-going audience. I'm going to tell you right now, that would not fly. When they bring them over, and it looks, all signs point to that's what's happening. Again, we're still at least a year away from this deal even being closed, or before Disney being able to really be involved with it. But that is, it looks like where everything's heading, barring government, problems and foreign government problems and all that kind of stuff. But it looks like where it's going. When it does, they'll just introduce the characters. They'll just introduce them as new characters. See, to me, the issue of mutants has always been a bigger issue than the Fantastic Four. Like, you don't need to explain why the Fantastic Four hasn't been around. You don't. You can just introduce them now. There's nothing wrong. The idea of mutants, though, particularly with X-Men lore and the history of Professor Charles Xavier and Eric Leshner, unless, and I don't like this idea, unless they decide to say mutation is a new thing and there's a young guy named Charles Xavier and he's one of the first mutants, and you just start mutants now. And instead of dealing with an Eric Leshner and a Professor Charles Xavier who have been around for 30 years, you say, no, these are 27-year-olds. These are 35-year-old guys today. And they're amongst the first generation of this new mutation thing that's happening. You could do that. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm just saying they could do that. But with Fantastic Four, you don't need to explain how they haven't been around. You can just say, no, they just started now. Yeah, you can easily do that. I think that would work perfectly fine. Let's see. Dennis Lecompet writes, how do I get the director's commentary for Infinity War on Google? I don't know. It's one of the only movies I don't have on Google Play because somebody gave me a free code for getting on Fandango Now. So somebody gave me their code. So I purchased it on Fandango Now and I got it for free. So I don't know. I don't know because I got it for free somewhere else. So that's why I don't know. I'm sure you should be able to Google that, though, or ask in the chat board. Somebody in the chat board might be able to help you out with that. All right. Comic Game writes, hope to get more Hulk in Avengers 4. Need a rematch. Oh, I think so. And if you listen to speaking of the Infinity War director's commentary, it sounds like they were setting up for a larger conflict, both between Hulk and Banner. And I do think that was laying the groundwork for what we're going to see in Avengers 4. I do believe we're going to see more Hulk this time around. And I would love to see a rematch, although I don't know. Remember, one of the things they said in the director's commentary is that Thanos is permanently damaged as a result of the snap. Both he and the Infinity Gauntlet are permanently damaged. How badly they're damaged? Who knows? We're going to have to wait and see. Not to mention, he took a Stormbreaker to the chest. So I don't know if we're going to see a Hulk-Thanos rematch, but I do believe we're going to see more Hulk in the new movie. All right. Jordan's channel writes, did you see Cavill's Insta post? Do you like his as any of those characters? You need to be more specific. Guys, do me a favor, guys. If you're going to reference something, tell me what's in that something, because I don't know what Henry Cavill Instagram post you're talking about, so I don't know what you're talking about with characters. So sorry, Jordan, but you've kind of put me in a position where I can't answer your question because I don't know what it is we're talking about. So guys, please be a little bit more descriptive when you're sending these questions so I can at least know the context and know what it is we're talking about. Sorry about that, Jordan, man. I apologize for that. Sid Vicious writes, I find it unusual that Black Panther is being pushed so hard by these film journalists, even with new category news that they are making it about Black Panther. Well, I think because a lot of people are assuming, since it's ABC, that's owned by Disney, that it is specifically being pushed for Black Panther. Look, generally speaking, amongst a lot of critics and a bunch of fans, I think Black Panther is probably a better movie than Infinity War. If not, then it's close. To me, Infinity War is great. I love Infinity War. Everybody knows this. But, it's not in my top 3 MCU movies. Maybe I put it ahead of Black Panther. I don't know. But there are a lot of critics that actually really preferred Black Panther. And I can see why. There are definitely things about... There are areas that Black Panther trumps Infinity War. And there are certain things that Infinity War trumps Black Panther. it all depends. But yeah, a lot of people think that maybe that's just really a move for Black Panther, because there are a lot of critics out there that prefer that movie over an Infinity War. And I can see why. I think it's very close. It depends on the day you ask me. Some days I think Black Panther's better. Some days I think Infinity War is better. But whatever, it's close either way. But I do know there's a bunch of people that do prefer Black Panther. There's people I know that prefer Infinity War, whatever. But yeah, the general consensus right now does seem to be that this is a play to get Black Panther some kind of Oscar, even if it's a fake Oscar. Which is ridiculous and dumb and all that kind of stuff. So, hey, Zed, there we are. All right, Easy Target writes, Super Chat Wars, Attack of the Big Jump. Oh, yeah, because every day we get a big jump. And we're probably going to get another one today. Easy Target writes, did that DC news drop yet? So curious. Not talking about it. I've mentioned that many times. I'm not talking about it. Cameron Peterson writes, Drax fulfill contract so they can kill him off. The problem is, I don't know how many more films he has on his contract. Honestly, right now, I don't know if he's got one more film on his contract. I don't know if he's got 5 more films on his contract. So I don't see the point in doing it just to kill him off, to be honest with you. I don't see the point in doing that just to kill him off. I just realized I can see my microphone in the shot. It's right there. It's just in my shot a little bit. Whatever. Count Ripula, I like that name. Love your show, John. Been watching since the AMC days. Just wanted to give you a tip for all your hard work. Thank you so much, Count. I really appreciate that, and I dig the name. That's really awesome. So thank you. And it does, you know what? One of the things that's really cool to me, I gotta say, is when I hear from people who say, hey, I've been watching you since the AMC days, or hey, I've been with you since the movie blog days. A lot of you guys have been with me since the movie blog days. I cannot put into words how awesome that makes me feel, because you didn't just stumble across me and this idiot Canadian talk, but you've actually found this idiot Canadian and you've stuck with me over years. That makes me feel really special, and I don't deserve it, but I thank you so much for that. It means a lot to me, and thank you for mentioning it. I appreciate it, dude. All right, Sean Carson writes, The Prestige is my all-time favorite movie, but is never really talked about when discussing Christopher Nolan. What are your thoughts on it? Ending always rocks my world. I gotta be honest with you. I love the movie, but the ending I have a problem with. I never did like the ending. The ending did not work for me. And I think that's why, and I'm not trying to take away your love of the ending, not at all. But you're asking me my thoughts on it. It's a movie that I have always loved, but it's one of those films where, like, the ending kind of soured my experience of the rest of the film. Honestly, 8/10 of that movie is brilliant, and is probably a top 3. If you stop that movie before the ending, that movie is probably a top 3 Christopher Nolan film. But the ending to me, and I won't give away the ending, but the ending to me with Hugh Jackman and everything, to me, it drops it quite a bit to me. I still enjoy the movie very much. And if I'm, flipping through my YouTube TV or whatever, and I see The Prestige is on, I'll usually stop and watch it for a bit, because it's a very well put together movie. Brilliant performances by Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Michael Caine, Scarlett Johansson. It is a really solid movie. I just got to say that the ending does not work for me. So that's why when you hear me talk about my favorite Christopher Nolan films, I'm talking about things like Memento. I'm talking about things like Insomnia. Insomnia is actually my favorite Christopher Nolan film. You're talking about, obviously, you're talking about Dark Knight. You're talking about, you're talking about those films. That's why Prestige doesn't come up for me personally. It's still very good, and I still enjoy it a great deal. It's just that ending for me knocked it out of that, like, the top 5 consideration for me when it comes to Chris Nolan films. Gio writes, watch While We're Young with Adam Driver and Ben Stiller. Oh, yeah, I've never seen that. I haven't watched that, and I've had a couple people mention that one to me, so I will keep my eyes open for that, Gio. Thanks for mentioning it. Jaron Morris writes, Hey, John, not sure if you listen to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast. I've heard a few episodes. Usually what happens is, like, my friend Ryan or my brother-in-law Ray will say, oh, did you hear this episode of Stone Cold? And then I'll listen to that episode. But I don't listen to it regularly, but I have heard a few episodes. He's a great podcast host. Like, he is a very good podcast host, Steve Austin. Anyway, I'm not sure if you listen to the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, but he mentioned you on it. He's a fan of that. Being said, what is your favorite Stone Cold moment? Shut up. Shut up. You're lying. Are you seriously telling me Stone Cold Steve Austin mentioned me on his podcast? I'm having a geekgasm right now. I grew up watching that dude, man. Don't lie to me. Don't play with my emotions. I'm getting very emotional right now. Don't play with my emotions. Do not tell me that. Don't say that and lie to me. Somebody, if that's true, somebody do me a favor. Can somebody email me a link? Because that's going to make my freaking year. If I hear Stone Cold Steve Austin mention me, it's going to freaking make... can you see how flush I'm getting? I almost want to cry right now. I almost want to cry at the idea that Stone Cold Steve Austin would have mentioned me on something. So shut up. Don't play with my heart that way. If it's true, please email me. Please email me a link to that. I would get a major kick out of that. That being said, what is your favorite Stone Cold moment? Oh my gosh. There are, first of all, Stone Cold was one of those rare guys, because you got lots of guys who are great in-ring performers, can't necessarily speak. Guys with amazing mic skills who can't necessarily perform in ring. And then you get guys rare who could do both. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is obviously one of them. But right up there, very close to Dwayne Johnson, is Stone Cold Steve Austin. That dude was one of the funniest dudes, one of the best mic talkers in business history. Top 5 easily. And he was an incredible in-ring performer. He was a great technical wrestler. He was all that. So great moments but look, whenever you're going to talk about the great moments, you got to go back to the era that it was Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon. You always got to go back. There are so many great moments between Stone Cold and Vince McMahon when they created that whole feud, the working man versus the man versus his boss, right? It was like a brilliant move and done to perfection by both Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was a great era for stuff like that. All right. Let's see. Epic Dub Time 23 writes, thoughts on Be Kind Rewind with Jack Black? Oh, dude, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I watched that. I remember it was literally back when it was Blockbuster was still a thing. I watched it via Blockbuster. I remember I rented it. Me and my buddy watched it. I remember next to nothing about the film other than it clearly didn't make a big impression on me. So that's all I can't. It's been so long since I've seen it, man. And I never went back to watch it twice. And I just know it didn't make that big of an impression on me. So I guess that's kind of my feelings on Be Kind Rewind. Jay and Moen's Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. Something beats Bears. I mean, one of the great Jim Dwight interactions on The Office of all time. Battlestar Galactica. The Jim. I can watch The Office anytime. I know I've mentioned that before. I can come home any day. Wait for Frank to come home. Then we can just play roulette. We'll put on The Office and then close our eyes and flip through the menuing system and hit play on any episode of The Office and know we are going to laugh ourselves silly. It's just one of the greatest shows of all time, man. Jordan Cadwell writes, is there any chance that the Oscars will change their minds given the tremendous backlash? Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely. They could change their minds. Completely, they could change their minds. Absolutely. They haven't even given any details. Even when they announced it, said, we don't know what's the qualification for a popular film. They haven't even figured out what qualifies. How do they even define what a popular film is? They haven't even done that yet. So they absolutely could renege on this. And I really hope they do. All right. Barth Revan writes, watched Eternal Sunshine for the first time. Talk about a mindfuck. While I liked it, it was quite weird, and I don't think I loved it. Your thoughts? You're not alone. There are a lot of people. Look, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Jim Carrey's iconic film. There are a lot of people who I know that have watched that film long after its day because they always hear Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And it's got Jim Carrey. So I think a lot of people approach that film, understandably so, with a certain mindset of what kind of film this is going to be. Oh, this is going to be a great Jim Carrey comedy, right? And it's a very different kind of film. I love the film personally, but I could totally see Barth, why people like you and others who've just always heard about this movie and coming from that era of Jim Carrey's career, going in with a certain expectation of what this is probably about, and it is. It's a very different kind of movie. And I've talked to some people who go, like, it's good, but it's weird. And I can totally understand that. I totally can. And you're not alone in that feeling. But for me, I'm one of those people that it's not my favorite Jim Carrey movie. It's for a lot of people, it's their favorite Jim Carrey. It's not my favorite Jim Carrey movie, but I am one of those people that I really enjoyed it. It really did work for me, but it's totally understand. Your reaction, you are not alone, and your reaction to it is totally understandable. Kevin Kamaki just sends in a super chat. Thanks a lot, Kevin. And there's the Attack of the Jump. Okay. Guys, we're already at an hour, but there's not too many questions left, so I'm just going to go quickly. I'm going to get through all your questions so they don't have to wait for a companion video. Please don't send in any more questions at this point. Patrick Kiwit writes, oh my God, John, you were talking so much about Gunn that you're still talking about him with Aquaman. There you go. It's a big thing to me. What can I say? Bernie Palafox writes, I think DC should just focus on their standalone films, get some good films out, and use a Flash movie to do a soft reboot, then give Justice League another try, as James Wan did, just focus on the story. It feels like that's what, because there has been no mention of another Justice League. Have you noticed that? Then in all of the talks about what movies could be coming, what movies are in development, what movies already have a green light, there is no talk. Nobody's even uttering the phrase Justice League. No one's even uttering that right now. And honestly, I think that is very smart. Now look, I've said for years that DC didn't have to follow the Marvel model and do 8 individual films, then do Justice. I've never believed that. I always believe if you did it right, you could have launched your cinematic universe with Justice League. I fully believe that. And I will debate anybody on that point. You totally could have done that. Yes, it worked for Marvel doing it the opposite way. Beautiful. But that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. I believe if executed right, you could have launched the DCEU with a Justice League. And I thought there could have been some real positive benefits out of that. They didn't. They kind of went in between. They didn't do the Marvel way. They didn't do the opposite way. They did something in between. And even that could have worked if they made the movies better. And I like them, but, a lot of people didn't. Okay, fine, fair enough. But it could have worked. But now they are in a position with their backs against the wall, and they do have to be careful how they proceed. And I agree. It seems like their philosophy right now is just to move ahead and focus on individual films. Let's not even talk about Justice League. Let's not reference Justice League. Let's not worry about Justice League until we get through a bunch of individual films. Then we'll think about it later, and it does seem like that's the philosophy they're adopting right now. All right. Aaron Strelinsky says, any theory on how Thanos knows Tony Stark? Well, I think, like anybody, remember, at the end of the first Avengers, I think he knows all the Avengers. At the end of the first Avengers, in the post-credit scene, Thanos' lackey guy, I can't remember his name, the guy who talks like this, his lackey guy says, their defenders are too powerful. To challenge them would be to court death. And Thanos looks back at them and smiles. A little wink to the death character that we're never going to see. But in that tells me Thanos would then gather intel on who are these guys that stopped my army? Who are these guys that stopped my herald, Loki, that I sent there? Who are these people? That my own right-hand man is telling me I probably shouldn't challenge them because it would be courting death. So I believe he probably did intel on all of those guys. So yeah, I think Thanos knows who Thor is, clearly. He knows who Captain America is. He knows who Tony is. He knows who all of them are, because I believe he did intel as a result of the events in the first Avengers. AZ Wildcat just sends in a super chat. Thank you, AZ. Mark B writes, after Michael left the office, I didn't like any of the new characters, maybe except the 2 temps. How did you feel with some of the new cast? The new cast was fine. Here was the problem with The Office after Steve Carell left. Steve Carell easily could have left, and that show could have gone on perfectly fine because it's filled with rich characters. And I'm telling you this, and I will stand by this to my dying breath. The thing that killed The Office was their decision, their stupid decision, to make the Ed Helms character, Andy, the new focus of the show. And it was all based on, Ed Helms is in that really popular Hangover movie. We should make him the new focus of the show. And Andy was never that great of a character. He was fun in a small supporting role. Ed Helms played that fine as a small supporting role. But anybody who watched The Office knew there's no way he would be the new boss. And the character is not compelling to be the center of the show. The new center of the show should have been Jim and Pam, or it should have been Dwight with Jim right there with him, or whatever. But there were many other options. Instead, they decided to focus it around Ed. And halfway through that first season, they realized this isn't working. But by then, they already lost a lot of things. I think if you had just look, the show was always Michael Scott, Jim and Dwight, and Pam. We're the next level down, then you have the other characters. If you had just elevated those three up and kept all the other hierarchy there, I think it would have worked fine. I think that show could have gone on another 4 seasons. I really do. You had strong writing, strong characters, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that sunk that show was their decision to make, Ed Helms is really popular right now because of The Hangover. That is what killed their show. I'm fully believe that. I could be wrong, but I really believe that. All right, Paul Richards writes, if Disney does end up with Fox, what happens to the actor contracts Fox Studios still has outstanding? Are the actors released if Disney dissolves Fox? If Disney dissolves Fox, then yes, the actors are released because the body, the entity that the actors had a contract with no longer exists. Had Comcast got Fox, Comcast's plan was, much like they did with Universal Studios, Comcast's plan was to keep Fox intact. As the 21st century or 20th century Fox as a movie studio intact. Therefore, the body would have still been there. The entity, the legal entity would have still been there. And the contract, look, every contract though is unique. All right. There are some general principles that apply to most contracts, but every contract is unique and will have its own unique clauses and everything in it. Some actors' contracts may include events like that. Some actors' contracts may not. So there's no one general answer to all of that. But basically speaking, with exceptions, yeah, if the body and the entity you have a contract with dissolves, your contract is nullified. Your contract is nullified. So again, there are unique circumstances, there are individual contracts, all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, that's the principle. Last 2 questions. Jeremy Sneed writes, popularity category is making it easy for people to say Black Panther only loved for cultural significance. Oscar tarnishing itself and films. Terrible idea. It is a lose-lose. That's the thing. It's not only undermining the Oscars, it is a spit in the face to the genre films that are getting better and better and better and relegating them to a kiddie table with a participation award. That's what upsets me, is that at least you can make an argument if it's bad for the Oscars, but good for genre film. Or if it's, bad for genre film, but good for the Oscars. This is bad all the way around. And it's only being pushed by ABC because they want a few higher ratings. The Oscars are not about the broadcast. The Oscars should never be about the broadcast of the Oscars. I don't care if you don't broadcast the Oscars. Honestly, I'll hold the Oscars in a private ceremony, don't televise it, and just announce the winners publicly after the awards dinner. I'm fine with that. The Oscars should not be about the broadcast. And now they're letting their self be undermined because of the demands of the broadcaster, and that cannot be allowed. Anyway. All right. And the final thing comes to us from Click My Vid, who just writes, what? Oh, Steve Austin. I get it. What? It was one of the great Steve Austin things. Guys, I'm not serious. I'm still about to be in tears. I'm not kidding. If Stone Cold Steve Austin actually mentioned me once, you have to give me a link. Because I have to assume that if Stone Cold Steve Austin ever actually mentioned me, I would have gotten 1,000 tweets about it. Because people know that I'm big on Steve Austin. I'm big on that whole era of WWE. That's when I really followed WWE's during the Stone Cold era. So I'm just freaking out. Anyway. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me for today for this installment of the John Campea Show. Hey, listen, guys, don't forget, very important. Listen, dead serious. If you are somebody who enjoys watching my shows and you get a kick out of the film community here that we have, do me a favor, consider becoming one of my Patreon supporters. Just head over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter keeps this show on the air, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter, like audio-only versions of the John Campea Show and audio-only versions of the new Weekly Hero that we have relaunched, as well as some behind-the-scenes vids, access to our exclusive Facebook group. There's a few benefits like that. And if you look at all that and think, you know what, I want to support the John Campea Show and become a Patreon supporter, that would be awesome. And you'd have my eternal gratitude. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you guys who also support the show by using Super Chat. You guys are the reason I'm able to do this at all and getting all these great topics from you guys. I appreciate it very much. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Don't forget, a little bit later today at 2 p.m., we have open mic. I'm going to do a little bit of Warcraft streaming later tonight, too. And also, don't forget, me and Robert Meyer Burnett did our first episode of The Weekly Hero last night. It's up on my YouTube channel right now. Will let you know, though, I made a technical gaffe. It was my fault. It was human error. Rob's mic sounds wonky. Rob's mic was actually perfect. The problem is there's a microphone on Rob's camera, and I forgot to deactivate the mic on Rob's camera. So you hear the real mic and the crappy mic, and it made it really bad. I mean, you can still totally hear Rob. It's still fine, but that was my mistake, my fault. I own it. I will improve that next time. But still, I'm getting really good feedback from you guys about yesterday's show, so go check that out. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.